Alrighty, so we are going to start with the dish that you chose, which is a chicken biryani. So first of all, it's the perfect timing of it because it's Ramadan, right? So yeah, it's the first day of Ramadan in India. And so for whatever reason, the universe chose that we should make this very appropriate dish today. And so here we are. We're doing a chicken biryani. For anyone that's vegetarian or omnivorous or does not want to eat meat, you can absolutely make this dish with mushrooms. You can make it with vegetables. Although there's a very popular social contradiction that there is no such thing as veg and biryani. They're oxymorons and they cannot be used in the same sentence next to each other, right? Okay, well, whatever you say. But I always feel like just because you're vegetarian, you shouldn't be deprived of the fine taste of biryani. If you can afford to have one, you certainly should. So just going to do a quick welcome to all of my Facebook people who are tuned in. We are actually in the process of a class. So I'm doing a one-on-one class online with Frank, who's on Pacific Standard Time. Here I am in India on Indian Standard Time, even though I live in New York, which is Eastern Standard Time. So there's a whole lot of time conflicts and things that were panning across nations. Technology has made it super easy. Frank is actually slicing his onions, so that's the first step of making a good biryani, is to get some good red onions and slice them really, really thin. The basis of a good biryani is often a korma, and a korma is a sauce that's made by the use of yogurt, fried onions, and spices. I will go into the spice section. I will touch upon all the prep that we've got going on. When you take a class, you always get a printout, you get all the ingredient list, and Frank has been very, very conscientious and he's sourced out all the ingredients, which I really applaud him for, because sometimes it can be a little hard to get. So historically, there are several kinds of biryanis that are popular right now. Documented are about 200 to 300 recipes, and every biryani changes by region, season, availability of ingredients, the taste and preference of the people that are eating it. There's a separate biryani for separate occasions, and every state in India has multiple variations of what biryani should actually be, right? So the one that we're making today is a chicken biryani, which I often teach to my clients or to my students who live in the US. My focus as a chef is to discourage people from buying a truckload of ingredients, even though biryani does require a lot of aromatics and small ingredients in terms of spices and things that add flavor to the dish. I try to discourage buying 50,000 ingredients and then not knowing what to do with it, right? So I've literally nailed it down and edited out a lot of things that I think that even if you did exclude it, it would still be a good biryani, and it'll be easy to follow enough that you will want to make it multiple times. Sometimes when you have too many ingredients, we just get discouraged and we don't want to make that dish anymore because you're like, oh my God, it's too many processes, it's too many ingredients, I don't want to be bothered, right? So I've basically tried to condense everything into one page, which I'm sure, Frank, do you have a printout of this, or do you have like a soft copy of this on you, Frank?
Yeah, I'll hold on.
Okay, so you don't need to look at it when we're actually in the class, because I always encourage cooking by intuition, but I wanted you to have it rather than not have it, because that's where all the ingredients are going to come from. That's where your shopping list is. So everybody that gets into the class has this. It's a list of ingredients and the method. So this is something you can hold on to in future, correct? And you can make it as many number of times as you want. So just a little bit of a history about biryani. So India is definitely a rice-loving country, and rice is our staple grain. We also have wheat, which we grow mostly in the northern parts of India. But also there is a lot of fertility in the basin of the Ganges River, which actually is supposed to be the best rice-producing belt in India. So the term biryani actually comes from, there's a term called dum biryani, and dum literally means cooking something on a slow flame. This technique of cooking came from our Central Asian invaders who would actually invade India for all its resources and then loot it and go back, right? So they would often travel with large armies of people who had to be fed, but no one really had the time to sit there and sear the meats or whatever. So they would, kill whatever fowl they could get or kill whatever animals they could hunt, or carried some with them. And there were no refrigerators back then. There were no tomatoes in the world back then. So most of the curries, most of the gravies in the Persian repertoire include using some kind of yogurt or dairy or cream or ghee or some kind of preserved dairy stuff, right? So this is a biryani that's how biryani came to be. People actually, they would make big vats of soaked rice and combine it with different kinds of meats and aromatics. And then they would seal it, and then the armies would have to travel. So there was no room, no time to eat anything messy. They would just eat this biryani dish with nothing else as an accompaniment or as a garnish, and they would literally, it was very hearty, it was very fulfilling. Rice was easily available, and spices were minimal to none. And then over time, it, of course, when it came to India, at some point the invaders decided to settle down and not go back after looting us. So that's how the Mughal dynasty came into being, and they ruled us for about from the 12th to the 14th century, if I'm not wrong. And during that time, lots of biryanis were developed, lots of aromatics came in. The spices from India started finding their place into a lot of Mughal and Muslim inspired dishes. So there were certain biryanis that were just made at certain times of the year. And biryani is, according to Google, biryani is the most sold or the most ordered dish in the world as far as Indian food is concerned. We think it's chicken tikka masala, but that's not true. It's actually biryani, right? So, are we together so far? You done with chopping the onions?
Yeah, it's good.
All right, awesome. So let's just head over to the stovetop and put our heavy bottom pan on the stove. If I can only find the lighter. So we're gonna jump right into the cooking process. The first step, this dish is going to be made in several steps. One that involves caramelizing the onions and cooking the chicken. The second part is going to be to parboil the rice. And then the third part of this dish is going to be to assemble everything in layers, okay? So we're going to start with the first step, which is going to be the caramelizing of the onions. I'm going to move you over to the stovetop so you can see better. Frank, just let me know what your view looks like right now. Okay, hold on. Just gonna scoot you over here to make sure that you're able to get a good view. Okay. I'm gonna move you closer to this thing. Sorry, this is not my usual kitchen, so I'm having a little bit of trouble like placing everything. And all of our Facebook friends can actually now just watch us from here. This is the stove where all the action is happening, okay? So we're actually cooking over here. And you said you were able to find butter, but you didn't find ghee, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so when you cook with butter instead of ghee, you have to remember to add a little bit of olive oil, because the smoking point of butter is very low and it's going to burn on a high temperature. We do need the temperature to sear the onions, right? So we're just going to add a little bit of olive oil to it so that you'll be able to get the advantage of being able to cook it. So just be very generous with the butter or the ghee for your biryani. We will be adding it at several stages as well, but it's the caramelization of the onions that is going to take the most amount of time in this dish. So making a good biryani is almost like writing a poem or writing a ghazal, if you will. I'm gonna get this off the stove so that you all can see very clearly. Okay, so once the ghee is hot and melted, add some olive oil to your butter so that the butter will not burn, okay? Are you able to get a good view of my stovetop? For all the people that are tuning in from Facebook, if you have any questions, drop it in the comment. I will get to each one of them after I finish the class. And if you have not followed this page, take a minute to like and follow this page so you can stay live with us whenever we're doing anything fun like this, okay? All right. Are we good?
Yeah.
All right. So the oil or the ghee should be glistening by now, and that's how you know it's ready. We're gonna... Yeah, okay. Whenever you're ready, let me know. Like ideally, bring your prep next to the stove so you don't have to turn back and forth. So bring all your prep next to the stove. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna start with some whole spices. Add the olive oil. Don't be shy. Add like the whole stick of butter. Add some olive oil.
Oh, whole stick?
Yeah. If you want that, because so the flavor that you're trying to create now is something that has to flavor the chicken, it has to flavor the rice, and it has to flavor the biryani. So if you skimp on the butter, which is the carrier of fat, fat is the carrier of flavor. If you skimp on the fat, it's not going to have that taste. Yes, I know we have to watch our calories, but when you make a biryani,
I never found something as satisfying as putting a whole stick.
I'm telling you, darling, you gotta do it sometimes.
But I haven't put the onion yet.
No, not yet. No, not put the onions yet. Take your whole spices. Take the bay leaf. Oh, you said you didn't find the bay leaf. Did you find the bay leaf?
No, we got everything.
Oh, you got it. Okay, so put the bay leaf. Put 2 or 3 cardamom pods. And then put the cloves.
The baby cardamom.
Cloves. Okay, just stick it into the hot oil. Give it a couple of seconds.
I have to turn your volume up.
Yeah, just turn it up so you can hear. Okay, so basically what we're trying to do is we are going to infuse this oil with the fragrance of all of these whole spices. Add a pinch of cumin. Don't put all of the cumin. And then add the onions. All of the onions. Add a little more cumin. Don't be shy. Put it. There's no such thing as over seasoning. Put it. Don't be shy. Because you have to literally imagine the quantity of the completed dish, right? So it has to be well seasoned, so it will carry through to everything that you're trying to do with it, right? You put your whole spices. Did you put the bay leaf, the clove, and the cardamom? Put a couple of pods. Put the bay leaves and put the cloves. Clove, cinnamon. Yes, these are called whole spices, and these are not the powdered ones, right? So whenever you want to infuse flavor into something and it's a whole spice, you're going to add it to oil to infuse it. If you're using powdered spices, you're going to add it to liquid or water or broth to draw out the flavors from it. That's the difference between whole spices and powdered spices. Yes, put the cinnamon. Perfect. Now you put in all of your onions. Everything. Okay, and put your flame to a medium high. So you have to now brown the onions. This is the step that's probably going to take the most amount of time. Make sure your butter is melted. Don't add it to cold butter. Okay. Add the onions. Add the onions. We've only added the whole spices. So we've added the clove, we've added the cinnamon, we've added the bay leaves, we've added the cardamom, and we've added a little bit of the cumin seeds. Okay, these are all whole spices. They have not been powdered or ground into anything. So the step now is to caramelize these onions, and you're going to increase the heat. And you will have to keep stirring them from time to time, because this is the step that's going to take the longest time. Beautiful. Just make sure it doesn't burn. Give it a head start by putting your heat all the way up, and then you can turn it down to medium so that it will be cooking at an evenly distributed temperature later on. But in the beginning stages, crank it up all the way and stir it enough so that all of your whole spices are combined with the onions homogeneously. Okay, and then you can turn it down to medium. Now you said you already chopped the chicken, correct? Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to prepare the rice. We're going to wash it and we're going to soak it. So whenever you work with basmati rice, this is the step that's super important. You're going to wash the rice several times till the water runs clear. Okay, and then we're going to soak it for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then it'll be ready to cook. So this is what my bowl of rice looks like. This is basmati rice. You can also use Indian parboiled rice. It doesn't have the aroma of basmati, but it holds up really well in a biryani. Okay, so depending on what kind of biryani you're making and for whatever occasion you're making, you can also vary the kind of rice that you're using. So we're just going to give it a good stir. Just keep an eye on the onions, make sure they do not burn and make sure they're just evenly browning. That's super important. Now we're going to take the rice to the sink and wash it about 6 to 7 times till the water runs clear. And I'm going to show you what I mean by not clear water, okay? Now what is the right way to wash the rice? You're going to take the rice, put it in water, and then you're going to crush it like this in your hands. You see this, how I'm crushing it? This is the right way, here. Okay, and then when you do that, you see that this water is quite milky and it's murky, right? So you're going to do this about 6 times and that makes the water run clear. That's how you know that all of the residual starch and the dirt and the dust from the rice has been cleaned. So we are going to repeat this process about 6 times. And then you're going to drain it. Again, you're going to rinse it. अभी शाइमा के बोला हूँ कि आपके छापनी दिए जब भात छापबर छापनी in where? This one? Okay. So I'm again, this is my second time doing this, right? So just do it 5 to 6 times for a good biryani. Even if you're making a pilaf and you want your rice to not be sticky and starchy, this is the trick. You take it in your hand, you rub it like this many times, like this. Okay? And then you rinse it off. I'm just going to say a quick hello to all the people that are tuning in. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Frank is taking an actual online class and I thought, hey, you know what, why don't I bring you guys into the classroom? This is not my usual classroom because I actually live in New York. This is my mom's kitchen and I've transformed it into a classroom just so we can do this class. Okay, so now this is my 4th time and you can see how less milky the water is getting with each wash, right? So we're just going to do it 6 times is usually enough. I'm just going to stir the onions to make sure they're not sticking to the bottom. You can increase the heat a little bit. And just stir it at shorter intervals so that it gets the chance to caramelize when it's in contact with the pan. Okay, so increase the heat just a little bit and allow it to come in contact with the pan so that the color will develop. If you keep stirring it too frequently, it's not going to get that charred color. Just going to quickly tie my hair. Okay, so I'm going to go on number 5 of washing the rice. One more time. I'm going to take it. Abhi nikalti. Keep an eye on the onions. This is the 5th time. This is just good old regular basmati rice. Nothing fancy. It's very easily available. You even get it at like Costco and BJ's and everywhere. Nowadays you even get it in supermarkets. So it's not really that hard to find. If you feel like the onions are running away with you and turning brown too quickly, you can turn down the flame and give it a stir. Huh? Okay, so then increase the heat so that it's not going to get a chance to release the moisture. Okay, so this is my 6th time washing the rice and now it's ready. I'm just going to allow it to soak in this water. Here, this is how much water I've used to soak it. I'm actually going to pin this screen so you can see it better. I think there's a way to... there's a way to pin the screen. Or what I can do is I can actually Okay, so are your onions beginning to soften now? I mean, are they beginning to get brown a little bit? Okay. Yeah, I think as long as there's too much moisture, it's not going to happen. And then once, yes, so just keep an eye on them. If you cranked up the heat, just keep an eye on them because obviously you don't want them to burn. Now the rice is soaking. It's going to need 10 to 15 minutes. In the time that you actually take to brown the onions, your rice will have just the perfect amount of time that it needs to soak up. Okay. Now if you remember, I'd had you put aside ginger and garlic, remember? Okay, so you're going to take a mortar and pestle, or if you're going to do a minced version, you can absolutely grate this. But we're going to take a mortar and pestle and pound this ginger and garlic. It's going to go into the onions in a little while. So just pound it. Yeah, pound it or mince it, whatever you have access to. Yeah, the ginger and the garlic only. Yeah. If you want to do it in a food processor, you can, but hand pounded ginger and garlic in a good chicken curry tastes amazing, and it cannot take the place of, like any food processor cannot take the place of hand pounded ginger and garlic, right? But if you have to, then you have to. If you want to use a microplane, you can. Okay, so the onions are coming along really well. I can see it. Right? Yeah. Good job, Frank. I'm just going to show it to our audience who are looking. So mine are about this brown. They're getting some crispy edges, if you can see. Right? If you want a sweeter biryani, you can also do it with shallots, but I feel like red onions are like the perfect thing. Never cook Indian food with white onions or Vidalia onions or Spanish onions or any of that. It's always the red onion. And if it's organic, it's even better because it gives you that depth of color that caramelized onions give to your gravy. Okay?
I think our onions were actually massive. How much onion you have and how much onion we have?
No, because onions in India are also so organic. They're about this tiny. So I've actually cut 4 instead of 2. And I'm also making more chicken than you are. So it's great. I mean, hey, you know what? If you're finding it unmanageable, you can always remove some of the onions right now and only saute the ones that you think are manageable. That's okay. But in the recipe, it gives you the exact quantities that you should be using. So I'm going to go ahead and add the ginger and the garlic that I pounded. I'm going to add that to the caramelizing of the onions. Okay. And my mom wants to light her incense, so I'm just going to do that from the stove. I've literally taken over her kitchen.
You just stir it once every minute, I guess.
Yeah, don't over stir it because then it's not going to get a chance to caramelize. You have to allow it to come in contact with the base of the pan so that it's going to caramelize, right? And once you add the ginger and the garlic, you have to stir it so that that doesn't burn either. Okay, now you're going to take a separate bowl and you're going to put it on your stove top. This is the pan in which we're going to boil our rice. Okay, this one right here. So the rice actually needs a lot of open space to boil and jump around for all the grains to do their magic. And in order for us to do that, if you're making 1 cup of rice, you're going to put 5 cups of water. We are going to be draining out the water later. Okay, but the proportion for biryani rice is for every cup of rice, you need 5 cups of water. Let me know how brown your onions are at this point, so I'll either turn down mine or increase my speed so that we're all on the same page, and then just show me how brown your onions are. I think it needs a little more time to go. So you know what I'll do? I'm going to turn mine all the way low while you catch up. I think the problem with the pan is that it's overcrowded, which is why it's releasing a lot of moisture because it's getting, yeah. So if you want to take some of the onions out of it so that the pan will not be overcrowded, you could try to do that. That's okay. Just take out some onions from the side. Like maybe a ladle full or something so that the pan is not overcrowded. Okay, for anybody that has any questions that chef is looking smart. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Rosie. So take a class with me so that you can cook biryani just like me. All right, so what I have is, you can see mine are pretty crisp on the edges and they're quite brown, if you can see. Do you see it? So that's the look we're going for. You have to caramelize your onions at least till that point. At least. For a good biryani, for a good korma to have the flavor, right? So just take out some of the onions and then keep sauteing it. Increase the heat so that you'll be... Yeah, that's good. That should do it. Because you also have to add the chicken back to this pan. So I feel like this pan to begin with is not big enough for you. Yeah, if you have a bigger pot or a pan, you could transfer the whole thing on there. Okay, now I have the water boiling for the rice. This is on a full flame. Let me know if you're with me yet or not, and then I can either speed up or slow down. Okay, so you catch up. I'm going to just turn everything down to low so we can all proceed at the same speed, okay?
Okay.
Yes. Just give it a quick rinse and then put everything, transfer everything from your cast iron skillet onto the actual pot in which you'll cook the chicken, because you do need the space for the chicken as well. Okay? Yeah. No, just a pot like this that can sit on your stovetop. Just this. Let me see if you can see it. Are you able to see both the pots on my stove?
Yeah.
No, I don't think you can. No, okay. No, hold on. I have to just turn some things around. Hold on. Give me a second. My chicken is stuck behind the camera. Okay, let's see. Yes, just water at this point, just water, nothing else. Put 5 cups of water. This is my pot in which the chicken is happening. This is my pot in which I'm going to prep the rice. So this recipe will happen in 3 steps. We're going to cook the chicken. We're going to parboil the rice. And then the 3rd step is going to be to assemble and layer everything together. Okay? Yeah. So just put 5 cups of water in your pot and add it and stick it on top of your stove so you can boil it. Now comes the very cool part of salting the water for the rice. A lot of people are unsure about how much salt to put in the rice. And I'm going to give you a great tip. Let me know when you're ready. You have salt close by? Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to add the salt, and the salt water should taste like tears. You know how tears taste, like when you cry?
Yeah.
Like when your girlfriend broke your heart and you cried on your pillow, you know what tears taste like, right? So add the salt. Just like you cook pasta, you have to cook salt. So the water has to be as salty as tears or ocean water. That's how you know it's the right amount of water. Don't put salt according to the rice. Put salt according to the water. Okay, so this is a huge tip. When you're trying to make rice, make sure the water is boiling and make sure you put salt according to the total quantity of water and not according to the quantity of rice. The water after salting should taste like tears. So just taste it. And if it's not sharp salt, that means it's not enough salt. So the sharpness of the salt should hit your tongue, and you should taste, it should taste like you're tasting tears. Okay, so adjust the salt. You can use any salt you want, Himalayan pink salt, iodized salt, whatever kind of salt you use, Celtic sea salt, kosher salt. Just remember that it should taste like tears. So do not be shy of adding salt. No big deal. Keep an eye on the onions and let me know if they're brown yet.
Oh, they're so brown.
They're good? Let me see. Let me see how brown they are.
That's so high.
All right, and there's no moisture. This is good. There's no moisture in them, correct?
Oh, just a little bit left. Can I get rid of?
No, you don't have to get rid of it. Just increase the heat and then stir them frequently so that they're not going to stick to. So now we have to do the opposite of what we were doing before, right? Now when you're going to turn up the heat, you're going to stir them frequently so that they don't burn, but yet they're able to release all of the moisture, and you can evaporate the moisture and start working with what you got going on. Okay? So this is our step. So while that's happening, what you're going to do is, to this water that's boiling for the rice, you're going to add a few aromatics. You'll add a little bit of cumin. You're going to add the cardamom pods. Right? Add it to the water that's boiling for the rice. Add the star anise to this water.
Okay. Garlic pods.
Add the bay leaf to this water.
How many babies? You know what?
2 bay leaves is fine, yeah.
The right we thought we had.
Add some cloves. Add the cloves to the water. Three or 4 cloves is fine. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a black cardamom as well instead of the cinnamon. This is just another kind of cardamom. There's also different aromatics that different people use. They'll use mace, they'll use nutmeg, right? But we're not going to do any of that because we are going to add garam masala in the end. So we're okay. I didn't want to burden you with having to buy 100 million spices just to make this dish, okay? Now we're going to allow this water for the rice. We're going to allow this to boil, and you can cover it and allow it to boil. Are your onions ready now?
I would say so.
Okay, cool. So now what we're going to do is, the chicken that you've already cut up into 2-inch pieces, just make sure there's no moisture. I'm just going to quickly drain the water that came out of here. You're going to drop the chicken into the onions. Correct? I'm sorry, there's an aircraft overhead. I didn't hear it. Yeah, because the pot in which you're going to cook needs to be able to accommodate the chicken and the onions. So if this pan is not going to hold everything, you might need to transfer it. Yeah, perfect. And then just crank up the heat so that the vessel or the pot itself is warm and it's not a cold pot with hot onions. Right? Once that comes to temperature, you're going to sear this chicken on a medium-high heat. We're already starting the process of making the chicken for our biryani. Okay? You're going to turn it to medium heat and drop the chicken pieces in it. Give it a good stir till all of the onions are coating the chicken pieces. Okay? Yes. Beautiful. So we are going to gradually sear the chicken till it's not pink anymore, and this is on a medium heat. Don't do it at a high heat. When you shock your protein and make it at a high heat, it becomes stiff and it kind of singes onto itself, right? So we want to do it at a very medium heat and cook it till it's not pink anymore. Correct? So all of that onion flavor, all of the infusions from the whole spices that were in the ghee are now getting into the chicken. Remember, we have not added any salt to the dish yet. Okay? Okay. Now, remember we had the yogurt that we had set aside, the Greek yogurt that I told you to leave at room temperature? Okay, so you're going to take the yogurt and you're going to give it a whisk. If you need to add a little bit of water to make it smooth, you can do that. Yeah, just take it in a bowl like this. Just take it in a bowl and then use a fork or a whisk to make it nice and smooth. Keep searing the chicken while you talk to me so that you don't neglect the poor chicken guy, or he's gonna be very sad. Yes, correct. It's going to stop being pink. The more you sear it with the ghee, it's now going to turn from pink to almost like a white color. At least the outside is going to, yeah. So now you need to prep the yogurt because we're going to jump into the next step, which is to make the gravy or the curry or the korma, which is actually a combination of fried onions and yogurt. But we're not going to just put the plain yogurt. We are going to add the coriander seed powder and the paprika. Remember the dry spices, the powdered spices that we had on the list? We're going to take that and we're going to add that into the yogurt. Not salt, only the coriander powder and the paprika. Here. So you're just going to take that and make a little bit of a paste with the onion, with the yogurt, the coriander seed powder and the paprika. It should give you like a nice bright color. Okay. Some people like to add turmeric as well. I'm not adding turmeric to this chicken today, but if you feel like you want to like really have turmeric, you can. There's no hard and fast rule. Huh? What do you want to add? Turmeric? Yeah, if you want to add it, you can. You sure can. If you want to add turmeric, add it to the top of the chicken, directly into the pot instead of adding it to the yogurt. Yeah, you can add it to the pot, and then that kind of, takes care of any, it's an antiseptic, so it'll take care of any impurities in your chicken or whatever if you haven't washed it properly, because I always wash the chicken. It should be, yes, I think you need more. It should be like a nice, well, this brand of paprika that I have is actually from India, so it's definitely more potent. But if you're sticking to the recipe that came in the book and this is the color you're getting, you can add a little bit more. It's just color, it's not really heat, so it's not going to hurt anyone. Your chicken should be sizzling right now along with the onions, as you can see in my pan. Correct? So now you're going to take all of this yogurt and slop it on top of this chicken. Turn down the heat. Turn down the heat completely, and then...
It's not fully cooked yet, so we're
No, it's not going to be fully cooked. It should be white and not pink. That's the only point that it needs to be in the cooking process. It's not going to be fully cooked because you still have to cook it down with the yogurt.
Gotcha.
Okay, so it's not going to be fully cooked. You're fine. Add the yogurt. Now at this point you have to constantly stir the sauce. Otherwise it's going to curdle. Okay, so this is the technicality that you should know. The heat should be medium to high. And then you have to constantly stir this to really make it lose all the moisture that it has. Okay? So you're going to see that as soon as the yogurt hits the pot, it's going to start releasing moisture and it's going to start releasing some oils. That is the start of a good korma. Okay? You're going to add a pinch of garam masala to this. You can add as much or as little, it doesn't matter, because we will be using that again to perfume our biryani later on when we're assembling. Keep an eye on this. Also, keep an eye on the water that you had set to boil for your rice.
Yeah, it won't.
It should come to a rolling boil. Is it coming to a rolling boil? Okay. Okay. So give the chicken a stir, and basically what we're trying to do is we are trying to make all of the moisture from the yogurt evaporate. The reason we don't add salt to yogurt-based sauces in the beginning is because salt makes the yogurt curdle. So if you're making any dish where you're using yogurt as a curry base, for one thing, don't add salt in the beginning, and also make sure your yogurt is at room temperature and not cold when you add it to the stove, right? So these are two things you have to remember whenever you're cooking a sauce with yogurt. So just keep on giving it a stir. The heat, turn down the heat from medium to medium low, and let it simmer slowly so it'll release all of the moisture, correct? Yes, the yogurt has to be at room temperature, and don't add salt to the yogurt till it's completely cooked out. Like in the chicken, we haven't added any salt yet, okay? Alright, so it's going to simmer, and you're going to see little flecks of red and the oil and the ghee starting to come to the top, okay? That's what we're going for. Yes, from the paprika you'll see like little reddish bubbles. You know, like how when you go to hot pot you have like a thing of oil that comes to the top? Literally like that. That is called the rogan of a dish. Rogan means oil in Persian. And that's where all the flavor is, right? So the yogurt is going to release its own fats. The chicken is going to release its own fats. And of course we had the ghee in which we fried the onions. So by now you should really start smelling all of the spices that you've infused into the sauce. Your kitchen should start smelling a certain type of way.
Yes, that is all good.
Okay, good. Now let the chicken be on a medium to low setting, and then come back to the rice water that was boiling. Okay, mine is at a rolling boil. What I am going to do is I'm going to take the rice and drain this water in which it was soaking. Okay? We're going to drain this. We washed it 6 times. It's been soaking for about 10 to 12 minutes. And now we're going to cook the rice like pasta. That's the trick. To cook the rice just like pasta and not to overcook it. So into this water that's rolling boil, we are going to put the rice. Okay? There you go. Just put the rice into this pot, and then you're going to cover it and set a timer. Now I'm at a different altitude right now, so food cooks really quickly because I'm in a tropical country, right? So yeah, the temperature could be the same for cooking the food, but our times vary greatly because you are probably at a different altitude. So now I'm going to turn this rice up to its fullest heat setting. I'm going to give it a gentle stir, and I'm going to allow it to boil without a cover for the next 8 minutes. Stir your chicken, and you'll see that the yogurt has released some moisture. Stick your nose in your pot, it should start smelling. You should be able to smell the complexity of the onions coming together with, hey Tabassum, the complexity of the onions coming together with the yogurt that's releasing all of its fats, right? Some people also like to add cashews and raisins and whatnot to biryani, but every household has at least 10 different kinds of biryanis that they make. Every person knows multiple ways of making biryani. Every region, every state in India has its own way of making biryani.
We don't actually have any the red bubbles. I feel like maybe we added a little paprika.
You could add a little paprika. You could add a little paprika, yeah. Because mine is extremely potent. Because this paprika that I have is from my brother-in-law's store, and he's the exclusive distributor of Kashmiri paprika in the country. And so it's actually farmed and brought to him directly from Kashmir, and then he sells it because he sells a lot of Kashmiri spices and teas and nuts and seeds and all that stuff. So it may not be as red, When you see that happening, you can also add a little bit of tomato puree just for color. Even though in my traditional biryani, I prefer not to add tomato puree because I think it's not the way it was made back in the day, so I try to do it without the tomato. The yogurt is enough to impart the tartness that we're looking for. Okay, yeah, but it'll still not be, it'll not be white anymore. Like, even if it's not as bright red as mine, it'll still have like a deeper color, and the more it cooks, it's going to develop more. Okay, don't cover the rice at this point. Yeah, don't cover the rice, just let it boil exactly for 7 to 8 minutes. We're 2 minutes in, so we have 6 more minutes that we have to boil this rice for, after which we'll be draining the rice, right? So keep a colander ready and a strainer. So get a strainer in which you're going to strain the rice. Okay, so I have a colander, a strainer, colander, whatever you call it, and it's positioned on top of a pan or a pot. And I'm going to drain the rice. Keep this ready because you don't want it to go past even 1 more second beyond the 7 or 8 minutes. So we're basically going for the rice to be about 70 to 80% cooked. Just make sure your chicken is not sticking to the bottom of the pan. In my case, it's starting to happen. Yeah, so just scrape the bottom of the pan. And now what you'll do is you'll add some cilantro to this chicken. And you're going to add the salt. Now you can see most of the fat from the yogurt has actually gotten extracted. If you look at it, if you look at my pot carefully, you can see that a lot of the oil has floated to the top. So I am going to turn down the heat and I'm going to add the salt now. At this point, if I add salt, the yogurt is not going to curdle because the yogurt is already cooked. Okay? So you're going to add salt to taste and you're going to give it a gentle stir. And then you're going to cover the chicken to further cook. Okay, just scrape the ladle. Don't waste anything. Otherwise, mom's going to be very upset at me. At this point, you can add other aromatics. Like if you want to add a little more garam masala, you can do that. If you want to add a little cardamom powder, you can do that. If you want to add ginger julienne, you can do that. Correct? So you can do all of that stuff. So I'm going to set this heat to a medium and I'm going to cover this pot for the chicken. Now I'm just monitoring the rice and I'm waiting for it to get to the point where it's going to be 7 or 8 minutes. I think for me in India, 7 minutes is good. For you, I think maybe 8 minutes should be more the norm. It all depends on what kind of rice you have, how long you've soaked it, what part of the world and what altitude you're cooking it at. All of those factors determine your cooking times. Which is why I always say cook with intuition and train your intuition so that you're going to know what to do when something happens, right? I am going to add a little bit of ghee to the rice that's boiling. And I know I ordered some lemons. I'm going to bring that as well. It's going to bring a nice brightness to the rice. Yeah, just a few, just to add a little bit of butter to the rice. It's not, if you don't have the ghee, just a little butter.
I've never thrown a whole stick of butter.
No, don't put the whole stick yet. We need that when we're finally assembling the dish. That's when you need a lot more ghee. So, not yet, okay? Not yet. So we are about 6 minutes in. So 2 more minutes and I'm going to remove this rice from the flame. And you and I both started at the same time, so we're pretty much going to be pretty coordinated. For all of the people that are tuning in from Facebook, hi, this is Chef Nupur from Queen's Curry Kitchen. I'm currently in India. I did my mom's kitchen takeover, so I can teach a class to Frank, who is tuned in from the Pacific Standard Time Zone. We are making a good chicken biryani. This is the start of Ramadan. It was totally not planned, but you know, the divine timing of it really worked out. We're learning some basics of how to make a good korma. The basis of a good biryani is korma. Korma is nothing but a sauce that comprises of spices and aromatics with caramelized onions and yogurt. Okay, so I just gave the chicken a little bit of a stir. It's still on medium heat. The rice is boiling away. Are you guys with me everywhere? I think we're doing good. Let me know if you want me to slow down, speed up, anything.
Slow down a little bit, but we're just about getting up. It's good.
No problem.
This is really a blessing.
The only thing that we have to keep a track of is to not overboil the rice. Everything else we can actually turn down, turn up. We can catch up however we want to. I can turn down my chicken to cook slower than usual. That's totally fine. No big deal. Okay, it's 3:28 in my computer right now, so I have to take out the rice. I'm just going to show you what the grains look like. They're this big and they're only 70% done, so when I cut into them, they still have a little bit of a bite to it, right? So when you make your rice for biryani, don't overcook your rice. This is about 70 to 80% done, and when I cut into it, it breaks, but it does have a bite to it. Immediately turn off the stove and strain the rice into a colander. This is ready. You're going to strain your rice into here.
We got a lot of stuff stuck to the bottom of the big pot. Is that going to be an issue?
For the chicken,
Yeah, not a lot of stuff, but there's like a small layer.
just add a little bit of water, like a few tablespoons of water, and then turn it down.
Okay.
Yeah, it all depends on how much moisture the yogurt had to begin with, right? So if, like, my yogurt was not a Greek yogurt, it was regular yogurt, so it has a lot of moisture. That's why it didn't stick to the bottom of the pan. So I'm just draining out the rice right now, straining it out.
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay, so this is what it looks like. It's still draining out, it's still straining. So here's my rice. I strained it in a colander. It's still dripping through. I have some that's still left at the bottom of this pan, which I'm just going to scrape out. So this is the actual pan in which I will actually do the finishing process. So I'm just going to empty it out. Spread the rice so that it's nice and dry, so it can take on all of the moisture and all of the juices from the sauce that the chicken has. Okay, spread it out so it'll be nice and air dry. Okay, so did you see any difference after adding a little bit of water to the chicken? Just check that it's not sticking to the bottom. I'm going to check mine as well. It's good? Okay. All right. Are you seeing it? Is it more liquidy, or is it? Are you seeing the gravy come together? Like, what does it look like?
Consistency is pretty similar to yours.
It is? Great. Okay.
Maybe a bit more pasty.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So then, you know what? Increase the heat a little bit and let some of the extra moisture evaporate, so that all of the oil will come to the top. You see how in my case the ghee has come to the top? You see all of this? This is the ghee and this is the fats from the yogurt. So that should come to the top in your cooking process. That's when you know it's ready for the next step. So let me know if you're there yet. And then we'll also check for the doneness of the chicken by piercing a knife through the chicken piece to make sure that it's not raw. Okay. Here's the rice that I've strained in the colander. Now this water which you got after straining the rice, this is amazing for your plants. So if you have indoor plants, outdoor plants, whatever, water your garden with this rice water. It's really good. Also the rice water that you get after washing and rinsing your rice is really good for your plants. Okay.
I feel like there's no moisture left in ours, by the way.
Huh? There's no what?
I don't think there's really any moisture left.
In the chicken?
We just,
In the chicken?
yeah.
You want to show me what it looks like?
Go ahead, if you want.
Are you able to pick up your camera and show me it? I think it looks pretty good. It's not as, you know what, now just take a spoon and check the seasoning because I feel like it's a little under-seasoned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
The combination of the salt to the aroma of the spices to the body of the onions, all of those depth of flavor should be well combined by now. So that's what you're going for. I just squeezed a half a lemon into my rice to give it a nice brightness. You may or may not decide to do that. It's totally optional.
from the recipe, it's okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so is it well balanced? It should be a little bit over seasoned because the rice has to soak up a lot of the sauce as well. So it should taste like chicken curry on steroids.
It's not, yeah, it's got actually a bit of saltiness to it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you know what? Add a little more garam masala and keep searing it more so that it will release all the flavors and all of the flavors can marry into each other. And then let it simmer for a little while. Give it a good stir and then let it simmer for a while. Okay?
Yeah, the bag.
So just keep an eye on the way mine is looking and you can see that all of the onions and the yogurt and the spices together should be coating the chicken and it should have released all of the fats that should be floating on top. I'm going to do a taste test to make sure it's perfectly seasoned. Also because I don't cook in India too much and the salt that I use in my house in New York and the salt that I use here is different. Always season as you go along. Mine is quite taut from the yogurt and it definitely needs a little more salt and garam masala. Now remember that we've also salted the rice. So you don't want to over salt the chicken and you don't want to under season the chicken. So when you have all the other spices that you have access to like the coriander powder, the garam masala, make sure it's well seasoned because we have to provide seasoning for the rice as well, which only has aromatics that it was boiled with. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's give it a couple of minutes and then we will check for the doneness of the chicken. If you want to take out a little chicken piece and cut it with a knife to make sure that it's properly cooked. It should not be pink from inside. If you have an if you have a digital thermometer, it should read 165. So I'm going to take one of these pieces of chicken and I'm going to do a test to see if it's cooked properly or not. No, I think mine still definitely needs to cook a little longer. So what I will do is I'll add it back to the pot and I'll add a little bit of water to buy some cooking time. So I'm adding hot water. Whenever you are adding curry water to any curries, make sure it's hot water or boiling water. Don't add cold water because it drops the temperature of the dish altogether. So I'm just going to add a little bit of hot water and then I'm going to put the cover on to make sure that the chicken is properly cooked. The rice is 75 to 80% cooked, but the chicken needs to be fully cooked in order for us to start assembling this dish and putting it together, okay? I'm going to put the lid back on and I'm going to simmer it for about 5 minutes to make sure that all the pieces of chicken are evenly cooked. If you're doing chicken on the bone, it's going to take a little longer. I'm using boneless thighs, so it doesn't take that much time. If you're doing chicken breast, it'll probably take the least amount of time to cook, okay? So I'm just going to allow this to simmer for a few moments to fully cook the chicken. What's your progress? Where are you at?
Our chicken looks more or less done.
Oh, good. Okay. And did you cut it open to see if it's fully cooked?
Yeah.
Okay. And you adjusted the seasoning?
We're trying.
Okay, good.
More paprika. This is one.
Yeah, add paprika. It's going to give it a nice color. And then cook it through and it'll float up to the top when the fats are released. Have you drained your rice?
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. I've squeezed half a lemon into it. You may or may not decide to do that. That's totally optional. Just spread out the rice so that it'll be nice and dry when we're making the layers. When we assemble this dish.
I think we're good.
Yeah. I'm just gonna need a couple of seconds for my chicken to fully cook, so that when I assemble everything, it should be nice and yum.
So I guess like an inconsistency. Of course, the difference I'm seeing is we're not getting as much fat in our pot as.
Okay.
Because we used butter instead of ghee.
Did you buy the fat-free yogurt or did you buy the full-fat Greek yogurt?
0% fat in there.
Okay, so now you know. Okay, so the lactic acid, the lactose and the dairy actually helps to break down the fat, and it also helps to break down it helps to break down the protein in your meat or your chicken, whatever you're making. So when you're cooking any kind of Mughlai dishes or cooking any Indian dishes in which the curry is going to be made from a yogurt, try to use a full fat yogurt instead of a fat-free yogurt. That's the reason why you're not getting the oil coming to the top, because there is no fat. Right? So between trimming the chicken, not using enough ghee, and having a fat-free yogurt, I've used a full-fat yogurt. So that's the difference why there's like the oil, the ghee coming. You see how much of the fat gets rendered? You see this? This is all the fat that got rendered. It's a combination of the chicken fat, which was not much because I trimmed the thighs very well. And now it's sticking to the bottom. So I'm going to remove this from the flame because I don't want to overcook this. Okay? Just going to quickly. Okay, so now if your chicken is ready and it's fully cooked, you can actually remove it from the flame. We're going to move on to the last step of this dish, which is the assembling of the biryani. Okay? You know what I think? I think the pot that you've used for your chicken is the perfect size to assemble the complete dish. So maybe what I think you should do is maybe empty your chicken into something else and then use the same pot to finish the dish. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, because I think it's just the perfect size to hold the chicken and the rice together, and also create enough room for the steam to build when we're actually going to be in the assembling process. Okay?
There's like a pretty big bird there at the bottom. Just letting you know that.
Just scrape it up. Scrape it up. Use like a wooden spoon and scrape it up. Like for me, I'm using my rice pot to finish the biryani and assemble it finally in here. In your case, I feel like the pot in which you cook the chicken is a better size than the pot in which you cook the rice. Okay? So, my burner just decided to move and shift. So I have to put it back. Okay, so you just empty it out and get it ready, and I'm going to tell you what is the next step and we can start assembling it. By now your rice should be pretty dry to the touch, and it should have no moisture in it at all. That's what we're going for. Just make sure there are no burnt fronds at the bottom of your pot, because it's going to burn the biryani then. Yeah, just scrape it out and rinse it out. That should be fine. Okay. I'm ready for the next step whenever you're ready, so just let me know. So we have the chicken that's ready right over here. All of the oil and fat has floated to the top. It's been rendered from the ghee, from the yogurt sauce that we created. The chicken is fully cooked. Our rice is right here, 70 to 80% done, strained, drained, boiled with aromatics and salt. And then inside the layers that we're about to create, we're going to be adding cilantro. We're going to be adding slices of lime or lemon, whatever you have. We'll add a few pinches of garam masala. If you have pre-fried onions, you can use that as well. I'm not using any of those because my mom has some swallowing issues and she cannot swallow things like that. Everything has to be really well cooked for her. And she will be our taste tester today. I'm just creating some slices of lemon right over here. You ready for the next step, you guys? Okay. Do you have another pot that you want to use instead? No problem. Take your time. You'll get there. Just soak it in water for, just put like hot water over it for a few seconds. It'll be fine. Okay, so we're pretty much at the last stage of assembling our biryani and getting it together. For anybody who has questions about biryanis, definitely drop them in the comments. I will try to answer your questions. I just wanted you guys to come into this class and see how we do it in real time. If any of you want to take a class, just get into the website queenscurrykitchen.com and sign up for something that's appropriate to your skill level. Okay, so the chicken is done. The rice has been resting for a while. We've got the lemons and the cilantro that we've chopped up, and we are ready to go ahead and assemble the layers of the biryani, okay? Okay, great. Fabulous. All right, so now what we're going to start with is you're going to put, remember the butter that you were holding on to? Put a half a stick of butter at the bottom of this pan. And then put some of the rice at the bottom of the pan. So we're basically trying to create layers. We're going to have one layer of rice, one layer of chicken, another layer of rice, another layer of chicken till we finish everything. Okay? And at this point, if you want to take out all the aromatics from the rice, like the bay leaf, the cloves, the cardamom that we had put in, if you want to take those out, you want to weed them out, that's totally okay. Because they've pretty much done whatever their task was. You don't need to leave them in there. If you want to leave them in there, that's totally fine. Indian people have their palates trained to weed out anything that they're eating. So even if it comes in your mouth, we're able to take it out. Most Westerners don't have that skill. So it really depends on if it's going to bother you, then weed it out now. If you're fine with it, then you can just leave it in there. Okay, shall we proceed with the layering? Okay, all right, so just put the butter at the bottom of the pan. I'm going to put ghee, give it a little swirl. This is again to ensure that nothing sticks to the bottom of it. Okay. Yeah, perfect. Okay, then you're going to go ahead and add just a little bit of a ladle full of chicken to the bottom. Spread it to the corners of your pot. Use a lot of the pasty curry and not so much of the chicken pieces. Use that at the bottom of the pot and then cover the pot bottom with that. Okay, so just make sure you make a nice base put the chicken right there. Not a very thick layer, just a thin layer. Make a base at the bottom with that. Then you're gonna go ahead and add the rice. So one layer of rice goes in and just drop it from the top. Don't plop it, don't press it. It's very gentle. Use a spoon that has a soft edge, like a, you know, from your rice cooker, the little plastic spoons that you get for your rice. You don't want to break the grains of rice. Just spread it all over. Just shake it into the pan and spread it on top of the layer that you just created. Correct?
Yeah.
And if you need to just pat it around a little bit, move it on, but do it very gently with like very, very gentle hands. You don't want to break the grains of rice. They still are going to expand. Right? Then take a pause, put a little pinch of garam masala in the layer. Just a small pinch of garam masala on top of the rice. Add some cilantro in between. You can also do mint and cilantro. I'm only doing cilantro. Correct? Add a slice of lemon in there. And then add a little bit of the oil that floated to the top when you were cooking the biryani, when you were cooking the chicken. Remember that reddish oil that floated to the top, that fat that was rendered? Put a little bit of that. Okay, now it's time to put in another layer, which is again going to be the chicken. Just make sure to put the chicken pieces far from each other so that each one will have the time to breathe and the space to give flavor to the rice grains that are near it or around it. And make sure that no part of the pot is untouched by the chicken. Between the two layers, if you've missed a spot, then make sure you make up for it by staggering the placement of the chicken.
Got it. Okay, that's done.
Okay, now add a little bit of cilantro to this. Add your second layer of rice. Very gently, and then spread it around. Okay. So now you know why I said it's like writing a romance novel. It's about very many layers of love that you have to put in. There's technique involved, there is love involved, there is patience involved when it comes to biryani. Okay, so no wonder it's people's first love. Okay, so again, a little bit of sprinkling of the garam masala. This is to create layers of aroma. When everything starts to steam up together, that's what it's going to do, okay? A little cilantro again. Slice of lemon. And then take your last layer of chicken, whatever you have left. Finish up everything. By now, your rice and your chicken pretty much should be on the last portions. So just wherever you can find the space to spread it out, make the most of it. Scrape everything that you can from the pot in which you cooked your chicken, because that's where all of the flavor is. Whatever pot you're using to hold your chicken, make sure you get out every single bit of flavor that's in there. Some people also like to add green chilies. I don't eat green chilies, so I don't add any, but if you like heat, then you can add Thai red chilies, you can add Thai green chilies, shishito peppers, whatever you like. I just feel like it takes away from the flavor. Now I'm at the last bit where I'm gathering all of the fats that were left behind in the pot in which I cooked my chicken.
All the rice should be in, right?
Yes, all of the rice. By now, all of the rice, all of the chicken. You should be pretty much done with everything.
Yeah.
Okay, and then that's the last layer. What I like to do is I like to take the last bit of rice and add it back to my chicken pot and stir it around so that it'll soak up all of the flavors that were left. And don't be shy of working with your hands. It's totally fine as long as you wash your hands, you should be good. Right, so I just take the last bits of rice and twirl them around in the chicken pot to soak up every little bit of flavor and fat that's still lingering on there. Okay. And I'm going to spread it right on top of the pot. This is my last bit of rice that I had left. I've already used up all of the chicken that I made. So in a good biryani, the chicken and the rice ratio is exactly the same. If you're making 2 pounds of chicken, you should have 2 pounds of rice. Rice also expands when it cooks, whereas chicken shrinks when it cooks. But then you have the addition of the onions and the aromatics and the yogurt that actually gives you that taste. Okay, so that's done. Your chicken is used up. The rice is completely used up. Now you're going to go ahead and add cilantro to this. Okay. You're going to add one last piece of lemon in the middle. A little bit of garam masala. And then remember the stick of butter that you had? Yes. So melt that in the microwave now. Okay, now some people also like to add food coloring to this rice. And you are absolutely welcome to do that if you eat food coloring. If you don't eat food coloring, the paprika will do its trick. Or you can just add a little bit of turmeric to some rice and color your rice that way, right? But a good biryani usually has red food coloring sparsely sprinkled on top so that when you open the rice, it gives you 2 different colors of rice. Some people like to add eggs, boiled eggs to the biryani. Some people like to add potatoes to the biryani. So there are many versions of it everywhere. This version is kind of in between complex and simple. So I'm not going to say it's super simple, but it's also not that complicated. Okay, so did you melt the stick of butter?
It's melting.
Okay, perfect. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take a spoon or a knife or take the back of a ladle and you're going to go into your biryani and make little holes in it. So take the back of a spoon and then make a hole in it. Make little wells in it all over the place like this. Right? So basically what we're doing is we are creating pockets of steam. We're creating exits for steam to escape. Because after this we're going to steam this biryani for about 5 to 7 minutes. Correct? So just create few pockets and try to do it without disturbing the layers or the arrangement that you just made. So it should still look very pretty. And then you're going to take the butter or the ghee. Beautiful. And then drop that butter into these holes. Drop a little bit of butter into all of these holes. So in the traditional way, what happens is when you make the chicken korma the way we made it, there's a lot more of the fat that gets rendered, right? So that fat is actually harvested. Then the biryani is layered and that fat is actually dropped into these holes because that's the fat that has all the flavor, right? Now in this modern day and age, we obviously don't cook with that much fat. So we do have to make up for it and add ghee or butter to give it that taste. And it definitely helps to... Some people also like to add a little bit of milk to create the steam. I feel like if you cooked your rice well, you don't need to add the milk or the any other kind of liquid. So just make sure there's enough butter that goes into each and every hole. Okay, that should take care of all of that. Now you can take a piece of foil if you have and you can cover this biryani tightly. I am going to add maybe a few sprinkles of water around the edges. I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons of water. Now typically in a good biryani, we would either add rose water or we would add something called screw pine water, which is kevra, which is quite hard to find in American supermarkets, so I don't recommend it. But if you can find edible rose water, you should absolutely add some rose water or saffron strands to some hot milk or hot water and sprinkle it along the edges of the biryani pot. Just sprinkle this water along the edges. Right, so this actually helps to get the steam going. And then you're going to take your lid and you're going to put the lid on top of this. Now before we close this lid, I'm going to tell you when it's actually completed making. How are you going to serve the biryani? There's a certain way where you have to scoop the biryani a certain way so that none of the rice grains are broken and all of the meat also kind of holds on to the juices that it was cooked in. And the way you do that is you